So, in this lesson, I want to just talk about briefly kind of what the workflow looked like when we did the Mech Touch. So, the Mech Touch we knew was going to be completely virtual production shoot, which meant that we were going to be using Unreal Engine for the environments that were going to be on the LED wall. Since my company was handling all of the post on the film, I had the idea of attempting to do the entire workflow inside of Unreal Engine. Obviously not the editing and coloring and stuff, but all of the visual effects. Because, it started with basically me finding environments that worked for the different set locations in the script and then presenting them to the producers. And then once those were approved, then those became our environments. So here's an example. So basically what I did was I took all of those environments and I put them into one master Unreal project file. So I had it here. Then when we were on the stage, we had the drive with that project as well, so that we could access all of the different environments at any time based on the shooting schedule. And so here is an example of an environment that we used. This was an exterior cyberpunk city. This is an overview. So basically, I'll go down and, the first thing I start doing is kind of looking around the environment and trying to find spots for our scenes, right? So we look around here. There's a lot of different stuff going on. There was water, but we hid the water. And you can cruise around. There's all kinds of cool holographic layers and stuff, which is why we really like this. And basically, the spot that we decided on was over here, essentially this storefront. Now later on, I ended up replacing this wall with a big door that opens up with a keypad and stuff like that. But at first, we just knew that this was a cool background. So this basically became our background that we put onto the LED wall. And then we had our actor stand in front of it and shot all of the footage, mainly looking this way down this street. And then there was, another shot where he looks at his watch and we kind of pointed it over here somewhere. So then, we got all of that stuff on the LED wall during physical production. But the great thing with doing the whole workflow inside of Unreal was then we already had this environment and all the assets and everything. And then I basically took this storefront and hid it and then built a big, these like sci-fi bay doors that open because in the scene he punches a keypad and then they open and he goes in and it leads to a warehouse. And that warehouse is here in this project as well. We also had a intro shot that we pre-vized that ended up getting cut because, again, they really wanted to just get right into the scene, but it basically, started it was something like, it started up here and it came down and then it went like that and then came to the door And then the turnaround was looking this way and with our actual actor on the wall. So, all of that matched. And then anytime we did green screen, I just dropped it in to this master file and then would essentially put the shots into the environment as plates. So basically, I bring the green screen footage in here to see how it worked. And then, if I wanted, I could actually come in and record my shots. So let's say we make this 50 mil. And then, we can get in here and line up our shot. And some of the stuff we outputted directly from here, and then other things we just created. We just created plates, and then comped it inside of DaVinci. But it was a good way to test things for anything that we shot with green screen and kind of figure out, where we wanted to be. Maybe we like that better, so we would take him and just rotate that, not that way. Rotate that around. And then, so it's a good way to work really quickly inside of inside of Unreal Engine, because to do an actual VFX for this, you would have to comp and key and do all of that stuff, and then create this environment and then render it out, and it takes forever. And Unreal Engine renders out really quick, especially if you have a good computer. But even this is, playing in real time, right? So the green screen footage keyed out is playing, the environment is playing, all this stuff is happening, and it's all in real time. And I'm screen recording this at the same time as well. And, while I have a pretty good system, it's not as good as we upgraded the system during this shoot just because it was so processor and graphics card extensive. But that's not the system that I'm on right now. So then we would output, and this is how we would try things in a relatively quick manner, because also the production timeline, or the post-production timeline for this project, was so tight and so quick. Like, we had 3 weeks to deliver the show, and that was with 3 rounds of notes, color, music, sound mix, and all the VFX. And basically every shot in this project was a VFX. Either it was on the LED wall, or it was on green screen, or it was full cinematics. So we had to utilize the real-time power of Unreal Engine to try things out as fast as we could, so that we could figure out if things worked, and if they didn't, so that we could figure out what we were going to do and how we were going to make it work. And then, as I talked about with pre-viz stuff, when, shots got cut by the producers, when we were submitting the edits to them, when they cut stuff, we, luckily hadn't spent tons and tons of time. If we were doing all this on a, traditional VFX workflow, then it's like we would spend weeks fine tuning and doing all this stuff and then rendering it all out, which would take days, and only for them to say, let's cut it. Let's just get right into the dialogue. So this really gives a nice way to just test things out and figure out, what you're working with. And, you can see it's like I'm racking focus, but then, if I want to bring him a little bit closer and tweak anything, I can. So, stuff like this, again, we really dive deep into it in the Cinevision virtual production and AI mastery course. Like, that's all about the tech side of everything and how to do all of this stuff step by step. But I just wanted to show you the process that we used on the show, and so that you can start getting an idea of the tools that are available to you and how you can use them to make really cool stuff on a relatively small budget and a pretty short timeline. Like I said, just during this lesson, I've brought us into a project, I've brought in this footage, and I framed up, and with a few tweaks, like this shot would be good to go. And then we would just output it and then drop it into Nuke, do some finessing on the CG elements, and then drop it into DaVinci, into our edit, and then do the color grading on that. And again, this is one project inside of Unreal Engine, and you can see it just has everything. It has, all of our green screen plates in here that we shot. It's got all of our main locations. So each of these are different environments that we used. We have our we have our alien creature that we used in the show. We have our fighting robots that we used inside of the show. This guy, we dropped into one of the environments, and he was the final battle that the robots have. He fought the hero robot, and again, we animated it and did everything inside of Unreal Engine, inside of one single project. And then I had this project, and then everybody that was on the post VFX team had this project as well. And that way, we could all work on different things. These are, some holograms that we used. These are, some holograms of the robots that we used when they were designing them. And we could, change the colors and do different parts, and they're semi-transparent, and we can affect the glow and things. So we would drop these in on top of our live action footage. So the actor is at his computer in front of the wall, the virtual production wall with the environment. And then we would go in afterwards back inside of Unreal Engine and create these assets that he's interacting with while he's designing. So really, the whole VFX pipeline like lived and breathed inside of Unreal Engine. And I think it's a really great workflow. I think it's an amazing tool. And, I just wanted to give you a taste of the possibilities because, again, Unreal Engine is free. A lot of environments are free. And then, a lot of websites have sales all the time. Like for this show, because we had a budget for, visual effects, I was able to buy a lot of new environments and these assets and things like that. And, once you buy them once, then you have them forever and you can change anything about them and you can kit bash them together. So it's like, in this, if I like this street light or one of these, hologram signs or something, or a door or a wall or whatever, I can take it into another project, another map, another environment, and build out my own stuff. Which makes it super powerful. So as you are, putting together your first feature, like know that regardless of budget, you are no longer constrained by what you can do. $7,500 movie like we did Hard Sun doesn't mean it has to be a drama about two people in an apartment. You can do stuff that's on this level, sci-fi and cyberpunk and fantasy and all of that stuff. You can do that for a relatively small budget now, thanks to tools like Unreal Engine and Nuke and DaVinci Resolve. Things that used to cost, a lot of money are essentially free now. And I think that's a really great and exciting thing. Here's real quick, just one of our hero mechs. So this is, when we did, I showed you in the pre-viz, we did that shot of that guy in the cockpit. That was essentially this chair. And so we shot him on a green screen and then just put him in this shot, and it worked. It worked amazingly, to the fact that the previous shot ended up being in the show, and just the detail on these things is unbelievable. And you can change the colors and animate them and do all of that stuff. Honestly, the rigging and animating for these robots that's what took us the longest during post, but even that process has become a lot easier since we shot the show, because Unreal Engine is constantly updating their software and fixing things and making it faster and easier and less computer intensive as far as graphics and memory and CPU stuff go. So it's an amazing tool. I invite you to check it out. If it's something you're interested, again, make sure to check out our Cinevision virtual production and AI mastery course, because we go into a lot of this stuff. On the Discord also, there is essentially a separate area that you get access to when you're part of that course, which is just focused on that course. So right now in the Discord, you have access to all the areas for your debut feature, which is this course that you're currently taking. But if you enroll in the Cinevision Virtual Production and AI Mastery course, that will unlock new areas inside of the Discord where we're just focusing on all things virtual production and AI, and it's a super nerdy, techie field, and I love it. To me, this is all the future of filmmaking, and this is the stuff that excites me. I've always been a tech head and a computer nerd, and the fact that we can do stuff like this now with relatively no money is just unbelievable. And I love it, and I'm super excited. And you can see too, how this could be really good for like storyboarding. as I showed you earlier in a chapter, I use Unreal Engine a lot for storyboarding and shot listing and things like that. But, here's a good example too, where you could literally take a photo of your actual actor and just cut it out and drop it in and find out, find like your exact shots, like where you want to be. It's like, okay, maybe I was looking up, so something like that could be cool. Maybe like a better background, but and you can pull off like crazy high shots and animate things, and there's just really the world is that's cool there. Something like that. Yeah, that's dope. So really the possibilities are endless, and I anytime I sit down inside of Unreal to do one little thing, I lose like a whole day just experimenting and things. Because the thing I love about it is because it's real time, you can do things as fast as you can imagine them. So, like I just did, it was like I went close and then I went up and then I came down. I was like, ooh, that looks cool. And like with all these like scrolling holograms behind them. And, you can just kind of live in the creative moment and figure out your film before you start shooting, when again you don't have all the pressures of 12-hour shoot day and overtime and money and location fees and all of that. Spend the time when you're at your house and none of that is a factor, to plan as much as you can, so that then when you're on set actually shooting, you can be as efficient as possible without giving up things creatively that you really wanted to do. So this thing is incredibly powerful. I could talk about it for another 2 hours, but I just wanted to talk to you about the workflow of what we used on the Mech Touch, since the whole show is entirely virtual production based. And if you want to know more, make sure to check out the other course, and I will see you in the next lesson.